Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast. Hi everybody, it's time for another episode. So today I've got a little bit of lore for you from the Mythic World of Urd. A couple calls from Jason Connerly of the Nerds RPG Variety Cast, and then I'm going to recap some of the gaming I've been doing over the last few weeks that I have not, some of the campaigns I haven't had time to update everybody on. So that's what the show is about today. I also want to let you know I now have an email address for the podcast. It's arcane.alienist@gmail.com. So if you are listening and wanted to drop me a line and you don't want to or can't for various reasons send me a voice message. I always like to hear from people, their voices, but you can email me as well. I know I've got listeners out there from my analytics that I know I don't hear from, but maybe if you haven't ever called, but you feel more comfortable or more capable of doing it by sending me something by email, feel free to do that. That's arcane.alienist@gmail.com, and I will put that in the show description starting this episode. So anyway, let's get into the rest of the show. Okay, so let's go back to some world building with the Mythic World of Urd. I haven't done this in a while. I haven't had an episode feature one of these in a while. And I know at least a couple of the people who listen regularly enjoy this, have told me they enjoy this when I do the segments on world building and the setting lore and things like that. And so here's something that's coming up that I mentioned in the last episode that may kind of exist in the background. Right now it's not so much driving the plot as it is just sort of setting dressing to kind of help set the tone and give a little flavor to the world that the PCs are traveling through and adventuring in right now. But today I'm going to talk about this figure, the Great Cyclops. What is the Great Cyclops? Well, in the setting, the Mythic World of Urd, the underworld, although it's physically connected to the overworld or the world of people, ordinary people, it's the Underdark of my setting, but it's also sort of the underworld as you might have been defined in ancient mythology. So it is another place. It has its own rules. It has its own settings. It's not the mythic underworld. I guess you could compare it to the idea of the mythic underworld, although that's not where I started when I started thinking about this. It literally was more thinking about some of the Greek myths where people physically travel to the underworld, to the gates. They travel physically to the gates of Hades or the River Styx or places like that. So it's a physical place, physically connected to. Like I said, to the world, you can go there, but it has its own laws. It has its own magic. It has its own realities that maybe don't follow it allows it to be fantastic. So it's not just a big network of caves under the surface of the earth. But part of what's going on in the underworld is it's full of monsters of beyond theoretically beyond anyone's ability to number or to categorize. There are certain species of monsters, and then there are just freakish monsters. And people might have encountered at some point. Is that the only one, or is that a new species, or is this just some sort of bizarre thing, and that was the only one that ever existed? So mythology is full of these monstrous beasts where there's just one of them. Whether it's a freakishly large or powerful member of a species like the Nemean lion, or whether it's something like the Hydra, where, at least in Greek mythology, they're just the Hydra. They're not a bunch of Hydra like we see in a lot of D&D campaigns. And so that's the idea here is, well, what are the monsters down there? Are there a bunch of them, just one of them? Are they unique creatures? Are there just a handful? Nobody knows because nobody lives down there. The dwarves and gnomes are descended from an ancestor race who lived down there, who had to flee to the surface because of the proliferation of monsters. And so the only right now we've got kobolds featured in the campaign, and kobolds are an underworld species, so they might be able to explain some things, but given that they're kobolds, they can probably only explain the world as they experience it in their lifetimes, or maybe things that the previous generation had told them. They're not great lore keepers. They know what they need to know to survive in the world that they live in now, but as far as the ancient history where all this stuff come from, they might have a few stories or myths or ideas, but probably they can't even answer a lot of those questions. They might tell you how to fight a certain creature or avoid a certain creature that's too powerful to fight, but where that exactly came from might be anybody's guess. So my idea originally was there are these monsters in the underworld, and part of them, originally they served a purpose. Remember, the gods and the mythic creatures in Urd at one point served a purpose before everything got upset and turned upside down by the infighting and the struggle for power among them. So part of the original purpose of these monsters were to stop people from going into the underworld and reaching the land of the realm of the dead, which is down at the bottom of the underworld. So, a spirit of a departed person naturally finds its way along the way to find its final resting place, but you're not physically supposed to go there. So these monsters kind of create an ecology that deter people from making this journey. But at some point they just got out of hand. They proliferated. There's too much going on, and then there's they're more than just the natural sort of apex predators and things that make this ecology, this space hostile and dangerous to mortals who may come down and poke around in something they're not supposed to poke around in. And now the natural order and balance there is upset. And so the idea I had was so among the gods there's some creature or some being who's appointed to sort of regulate. It's the game warden of the underworld. And that's where I settled on this figure called the Great Cyclops, who doesn't have a proper name. It's just the Great Cyclops. I've toyed with it, calling him Nemo as kind of a call out to the Odyssey, even though that's the name that I think Nemo's the name that the Latin version of the name Odysseus gives the Cyclops when he blinds him. That means nobody. Well, in this case, the Cyclops is nobody. He doesn't have a name. He's just the Great Cyclops. But he's a monster hunter, and he's the game warden of this place, and he's trying to keep. He's maybe originally was tasked with sort of being sort of the manager of this, like I said, kind of like a game warden of this thing. Well, now he's more of a zookeeper. He's got to go when the monsters get too close to the surface where they're not supposed to be. He's got to go wrangle them back in and try to do something about that. So he may roam. My idea was he kind of roams the underworld, patrolling it still kind of as a game warden. But now it's about just keeping the threats away from the surface world, and not just managing a healthy ecology of something so that things sort of thrive and stay the way they're supposed to stay. So he's not really. I've kind of imagined him as a kind of a fierce figure, but not an evil one. The other thing, kind of in the world building, was Cyclopses were a species in the original BX list, monster list. I just couldn't find a niche for. It's just another variant of giant. Well, why would there be this one weird variant of giants with one eye? And so I thought, well, what if I make them more of a subterranean species as opposed to the proper giants of the overworld, and that that's kind of what the Cyclopses do. They hunt monsters and they live down in the underworld, and then the Great Cyclops is their the first of them or the greatest among them, or it's their god or something like that. And so that's where I kind of came up with that idea. I still don't know what I'm going to do with Cyclops as individual monsters, or if they're even there. I'm still toying with that idea. But at least the Great Cyclops of myth and legend is the keeper of monsters and the hunter of monsters in the underworld. And so we had a reference in the last session where the kobolds said they lived in this abandoned underworld structure with these eye motifs that seem to indicate that this place may have had something in the underworld to do with the Great Cyclops. It's obviously close enough to the overworld that a cult was able to go in there and take over and enslave them. But it is in that space that transitions between the overworld and the underworld. And so, what the purpose of that thing is, if the characters are interested, or the players are interested in that, we may have some more lore about that introduced and figure that out. Otherwise, it's just sort of again, kind of dungeon dressing to kind of make the place feel a little more real or a little more grounded in the setting. But I think my idea is that you may find these dungeons in the underworld. And it's like, why is there a structure down here? Well, maybe it's an ancient Dwergar structure that was abandoned when they fled to the surface, and then eventually turned into the dwarves and gnomes. And keeping in mind, I'm using the word Dwergar more in its mythical sense from Norse mythology as just a term for dwarf, and not in the evil, twisted, gray dwarves of D&D lore. So maybe that's where these when you find these weird underground structures that look like they've been planned out and built with purpose, maybe that's what they're from. And of course, without those ancient dwarven ancestors there, that they get inhabited by troglodytes and kobolds and other sorts of underground denizens. Or they become the layers of these monsters, and the Great Cyclops or his proxies have to go in and clear them out to get the monsters, capture or kill the escaped monsters, and get them back on the game preserve further down deep in the bowels of the underworld. Anyway, that's the idea behind the Great Cyclops. And maybe next time I get to do a little bit of a lore dump, we'll talk about why all those monsters started to proliferate, because it may have to do with another mythic figure, another god or goddess. So I will put that on the agenda to get to next time. If you guys have any thoughts on that, please let me know. Any questions, any suggestions? I'd love to hear from you guys. I haven't been putting out as many episodes lately, which means I also haven't been getting as many calls from everybody. So let me know what you think. Well, it's not true that I haven't been getting any calls. In fact, here's a couple of calls from Jason Connerly of the Nerds RPG Variety Cast.
Hey, BJ, Jason here. Just a quick comment. I paused before I went to Carl's call on your latest episode. Great episode so far, by the way. But I hope we're using the black powder weapons in our game of Advanced OSE. I think it'd be a lot of fun for my half-ogre to have some kind of big old arquebus or something. But what I was going to say is the Advanced Labyrinth Lord, you can get it for free with art free. So it's an art free version, but it's a free PDF on drive-through, the advanced rules, and I think maybe the whole thing combined. And then if you want a hard copy, I would wait, because every October they put out like a Halloween one, and with a jack-o'-lantern on the front or something like that. So I would probably wait till October and get that holiday version of the Advanced Labyrinth Lord rules. That's what I did for a hard copy. But okay, let me go listen to Carl. Hey, BJ. So yeah, I'm very glad that I stopped with AD&D First Edition, and that I never got into the novels, and we never even really did much with, like, say, the modules or the novels, the fanfic junk. Because doing the whole DC, keep rebooting our universe and trying to explain why we're rebooting and changing things, would have annoyed the heck out of me in a game. So I'm glad I ignored all that stuff. But it's cool that you guys enjoyed it, and you have good stories about it, so maybe I missed out a little bit. Who knows? Thank you for putting out your show. I look forward to playing with you in a game here in the future. Take care.
Hey, Jason. I'm thanks for the information on Advanced Labyrinth Lord. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, certainly we will use the black powder rules for OSC Advanced. I think that'd be a lot of fun to introduce that. We'll have to do a little workaround since we're talking about Temple of Elemental Evil, and I think, if I understand correctly, Gary Gygax was so opposed to the idea of I don't know if he was opposed to the ideas of guns in D&D in general, but he definitely didn't want it in his personal setting, to the point that I believe that he actually ruled that one of the gods, maybe it was Bakab, the god of magic, had rendered gunpowder inert if it ever comes into existence in that world of Orth. So I think there were some later, post Gary attempts to bend those rules and change them a little bit. But as far as I'm concerned, yeah, we need to have some good gunfire and explosions. So we will definitely include those as long as everybody else is agreeable to it in our little version of Temple of Elemental Evil. And with the the reboots, yeah, that's where DC Comics lost me. I used to be a pretty avid comic book collector, and then with less time to devote. In fact, I really haven't been keeping up with Marvel for a while now, unless in the comics. But DC kind of lost me with the endless continuity reboots. Every couple of years. It just I think I really, and of course we always enjoy the time that we were probably young and getting into our hobbies, but I think their post-crisis on Infinite Earths continuity, there was nothing wrong with that. They reintroduced the multiverse and the idea of multiple Earths again. That was fine, but the fact that they just keep, it's one other thing or another, and now which timeline are we in? Are we on the Flashpoint, pre-Flashpoint, post-Flashpoint? Which crisis? And just there for a while they just kept doing it. So yeah, they kind of lost me on that, and that's kind of what Forgotten Realms. I've always said that Forgotten Realms is basically the comic book universe for D&D. That it's you've got more powerful heroes than any world could sustain running around, and yet the status quo doesn't ever really change outside of kind of small local level stuff until once every 5 to 10 years there's some big realm shattering event that changes the status quo and the rules of how everything works, and that's exactly what DC Comics seems to do continually. But the novels, though, there's a ton of Forgotten Realms novels. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I really got into the novels initially with Dragonlance. In fact, Dragonlance was my first exposure to a published D&D setting. That I knew of, and I know looking back, I didn't know it at the time, realize at the time, but the first D&D game I played in, we were basically playing in Mystara. I didn't know that to me it was just D&D because I was new to it. But Dragonlance was the first time and it was through the novels, not through the game supplements, that I read about an established world based in Dungeons and Dragons as a game, where the wizards had to memorize their spells the way D&D wizards do, and the characters were all described in terms of the types of classes that they were, if they were D&D characters and things like that. So, and it was later that I got it kind of into Forgotten Realms in the 90s, when it kind of took over as the premier setting, with all the video game and novel tie-ins. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. I haven't enjoyed all of it. There have been some duds, and it can be a lot to jump into now if you didn't kind of start early when there were just a handful of novels about that. And I haven't read all of them. But thanks for the call. And yeah, I also look forward to next time we get to sit down together and play. What's it going to be? Pathfinder, DCC? What's coming up next? We'll find out. Take care, Jason. Thanks. Okay, let's get into some gaming recaps to finish out this episode. Quick update on my Storm King's Thunder 5th edition game. We played this past weekend, and I think we're 2 sessions away. I mean, we got 2 more sessions, I think, unless something gets kind of drawn out, or we get off on a tangent, or some encounter takes longer than it should. I think we've only got 2 sessions left. So kind of one other kind of penultimate, kind of thing, and then the big final shebang at the end. So we will see what happens with those. But what happened this past time, it was more of a role-playing session. As you recall, that the players had gone and had an audience with Lord Dryland, who is a noble in the city of Yartar. He owns a riverboat which he takes out every evening, and there's gambling and drinks and food and kind of casino setting, and they had forced their way onto the boat before opening out business hours to talk to him, and he had pretended to oh my, well, why? Oh, that's your soul. That's why you're looking for me. Well, no, well, let me do anything I can help. Please come down, have a seat in my personal cabin, and I need to attend to a couple of things, and then I'll see about anything I can do to help you on your way, which was a trap. And it turns out that his assistant, who was a wizard, then proceeded to drop a fireball in the room on him, and then he's paid protection to the Zhentarim, so some Zhentarim mercenaries burst in, and there was a fight in this very tight cabin, and they emerged victorious and cornered him, and he surrendered, and he was starting to confess everything. I'm a member of the Kraken Society, and we have King Hecaton held on a boat out, and he's starting to give him the location where the boat can be found, and he has some sort of massive seizure and dies from some kind of psychic attack. So that's where we left off, for anybody who may have forgotten. So now they're on the boat, and I think originally they were thinking they were going to, this boat is ours now, and they come out on the decks, and they see that there are more Zhentarim mercenaries about to board the boat, but they're arguing with the city guard. At this point, a fireball has gone off. There's smoke coming out of the windows of the boat. Something's going on. Previously, people had witnessed them sort of force their way onto the boat against some of the crew of the boat. They had roughed some of them up. So the Zhentarim are saying, this is our employer's boat. We need to go in here and handle this. The city guard is saying there's something more afoot here than just that. Well, both of them start demanding to talk to this Lord Dryland, who is dead. So the players are like, we're not coming off, their characters are, we're not coming off this boat till we speak to somebody with more authority. So they manage, I think, to intimidate the Zhentarim and negotiate with the city guard. So some guards run off and come back with a watch captain, and are accompanied by another wizard who the PCs the players didn't really ask about the presence of the winter. My intention there was that, hey, they recognize there's some pretty capable looking adventurers that are now on this boat, and something is going on, and it's maybe beyond just some of the city watch to deal with. So they fetched a wizard to kind of help back them up. So they come onto the boat, and they relay the story of what happened. Look, we were kind of confronting him after he had his men sicked his thugs on us, but we didn't kill him. He keeled over dead. The wizard goes and inspects the body, and I ruled that the wizard, through her arcane knowledge, could confirm, yes, this was some sort of psionic attack. So their story seems to add up. But we need to take them before the Water Baron. The Water Baron is the title of the Lord Protector of Yartar. It turns out they've kind of stepped into a difficult political situation, because this is the year in the cycle in which a new Water Baron is going to be chosen. The sitting Water Baron wants to keep her position. Lord Dryland was challenging her for the position. So now you've got a situation where a public figure who is trying to unseat the ruler of the city, a noble who is trying to unseat the ruler of the city, some people from out of town just show up one day and force their way onto his boat and kill him. Well, they didn't kill him, but now he's dead. So you can see the implications are, from her standpoint, this could very much look like an assassination attempt that would be, people would attribute to me. So she says, I've got to smooth things. They do bring them to an audience with her, and she says, look, how long are you guys going to be here? I need to smooth this out, because I've got the The Gentarm are going to be upset. Lord Dryland has he's a noble. He still has family. They're going to want an explanation. They may send the Gentarm back after you if you're going to be around much longer. If the Gentarm get involved and the Harpers start meddling, she mentioned, indicates she doesn't have any. She just hates the Harpers as much as she hates the Gentarm. Recall that one of the players is a Harper agent, and the rest are kind of Harper. They're not full-blown agents, but they've become sort of associates and of the Harpers and are working with the Harpers. So wisely, when they're telling their story, they don't let on that they're Harpers. They say, because they came to the city through a Harper teleportation circle. They say, well, no, we teleported here from the Storm Giants' castle directly. So they managed to not blow their cover as Harpers. So they say, we've got an airship coming to pick us up that'll be here tomorrow, because they had teleported in from Waterdeep and told the ship to just come rendezvous with them. And so they wind up saying, we'll stay in an inn for the night. They decided they would stay in an inn rather than go to the Harper safe house, just so they didn't draw any attention to the Harper safe house. And then we'll leave in the morning. And she says, good, then get out, and I'll smooth all this over here, lay low for a while. But if you're, in the future, if you come back through here, I'll owe you a favor. So they go to a nice, since they, now they're pretty much loaded. They're ninth level adventurers. They go to one of the nicest hotels and have a nice meal and stay in a nice room. But every time they, so how much is that? Oh, well, that'll be 8 or 9 silver. Dora, the little goblin barbarian, is like, well, take a gold, and how much is that? Oh, that's 3 silver. Well, here, take a gold. That's a gold. Here, take 2. So he's just handing out money, and his player did a great job of sort of playing him that way. Like, he just has no concept of what this money is worth. So the player who's playing he plays the player who plays Kalmar, his character is, he also plays in my old school campaign, and he plays Sir Roderick. That's why I got that confused. Says we need to help. We need to make sure he's not taken advantage of. Somebody needs to account for his money. So in the next morning, they actually they say, is there like an accounting house or a bookkeeper or a money lender or somewhere around here? So yeah, you can find a money lender, and it's there's probably looks like a D&D version of Ebenezer Scrooge's office, or some kind of old money changer, money lender, and he's got some clerks and apprentices that kind of milling about. Anyway, they're like, we want to hire someone, and he's like, you can't hire my employees. Well, they start waving gold around, and I ruled that one of the young kind of boys works there is like, I'll do it for that much, and so they acquire someone to help Dor with his not waste his money, and proceed to head out of town. So they get a mile out of town to where they're supposed to find their airship, and it's not there, but one of the crew is there, and he says, the captain didn't feel like it was safe to land here, so the ship is just over the ridge over there. We'll go. So they follow him. But they notice right away he's acting kind of dodgy, and he's walking a little too quick, and he's looking around. So they're not really surprised when the ambush comes. So the crew of this airship that's been ferrying him around are members of the Cult of the Dragon. They are loyal to Clouth, who is one of the great red dragon that lives in the Spine of the World Mountains. So they're not. They know these guys aren't good people. They're cultists. So they try to ambush him. It doesn't go very well. They pretty much the captain holds on pretty good. He gives a little of the crew gives pretty good for 2 or 3 rounds, but the rest of the crew go down pretty quickly. So they kind of overpower the captain, and are telling him to surrender so they don't have to kill him. And after all the crew goes down, he surrenders, and he explains, "We just when we first came, we're told to help you. The Red Dragon Clouth wanted us to help you because you were hunting giants, you were fighting giants, you particularly fire giants, and he was, because of this ancient enmity between giants and dragons, he was content to help you and see you kill giants. But now somewhere along the way, you've switched sides. You're helping the storm giants, and you're trying to stop Imrith, so you know too much about what's been going on. You've uncovered the kind of the plot, and so we were told now it's time to end you. And so they're basically going to force him under duress to continue to operate the ship for them. And he's kind of going along with it because, well, they can't exactly stop him. So they get back to the ship, and that's where we ended the session. They now kind of have a general idea of where to fly the ship out into the Sea of Swords to find the ship where Hecaton has been bound and is being held captive, which the Dryland had confessed to them before he died. So they're going to see if they can find him and finally free and rescue Hecaton, and that will be where we pick up for the next session. So getting very close to the end, and we'll see what happens. This will be a few weeks ago now that we played Dungeon Crawl Classics. This is a game that is the GM is Carl Rodriguez of the GMologist Presents, Jason Connerly of Nerds RPG Variety Cast, and Arlen Walker of Life from Pelham's Wasteland also play in this game. And we have another player who doesn't have a podcast. But this was an amazing session of Dungeon Crawl Classics. I'm playing Burnfried, who is a cleric of the god of mysteries and puzzles, and we leveled up recently. In Dungeon Crawl Classics, as you level, you get a second action. You roll a d20 to resolve whatever you're doing. And then in lieu of a second attack like you might get in 3rd edition D&D, when you get to a certain level, you get another action with a roll, but the die is smaller. So their second die may be like a D14 or a D16. So it's the same difficulty to do stuff. It just becomes less likely to succeed on the second attack. Well, for some reason, everybody gets that at 5th level except clerics. Clerics don't get it till 6th level. So this was my first kind of session fully functioning at 6th level. And it really made a difference, and I got to do some pretty cool stuff with my character. So we're in this castle fighting this coven of hags. We're down to trying to defeat the last hag. We've holed up in a forgotten room to heal up. And we're able to reconnoiter from the top floor and look out the windows and see we're kind of in the central part of the castle. So on the top floor, it's kind of in the middle, and then you can look out the windows and see kind of the parapets around that are the roof of the next lower level, and we see where the hags minions, these little plant creatures, are patrolling around. We had just previous to that had defeated an invisible stalker, and that's kind of where we left off last time, in the hallway up in the top floor. And as we're kind of figuring out what our next move is, a troll comes up the stairwell that we'd been exploring. So there was a door with a stairwell going down that we had into the center of the castle, into an area we hadn't been to yet. And a troll pops up and he attacks Jason's character, Idris Khan, who is a wizard, but rolls pretty poorly, and Jason his character is able to scurry away while I cast Word of Command, which is the DCC version of the command spell, on the troll, and I just tell it to follow me. So it has to stop everything it's doing, and the better you roll, the longer it lasts in DCC. So this is going to last for like 10 rounds. So for 10 rounds, all it can do is follow me where I go. It can't take any other actions. That's the only thing it can do on its turn, is follow me. And so my thought was, if we could get it, how are we going to use it as a shield, because we can tell by looking down the stairs there's another troll, and I caught a glimpse of the hag when I looked down the stairway. So I was like, okay, well, I guess the final battle's on us. So we kind of get down the stairway, and we're trying to come out into a hallway. Well, there's more of the plant creatures. There's some animated weapons. There weren't animated weapons. It was just the plant creatures, and another troll. And we kind of get bunched up in the doorway trying to get past this troll, the second troll, because the troll I took control of is behind us. So I can't do anything with him yet. But so we kind of trying to fight our way past this troll. The hag casts sleep and knocks out everybody but me. I managed to pass my saving throw, so I had to waste a turn nudging people awake. We've got with us a cat that we pulled in from a sentient cat that we pulled in from another dimension. That the cat wakes up one of the party, and I wake two more of them up. And so we're again trying to fight our way out into the hallway past this troll. And what I was going to do on that turn was cast command on that troll, but I lost that. So that the hag cast sleep again, and I decided to counterspell it, do a spell duel. And so we roll off, and what happens is I succeed. I rolled enough to succeed, but not to completely. The way the spell mechanic works, I didn't roll higher than the hag. I rolled close enough to affect her spell, but not enough to completely negate it. So it all gets deflected onto Otto, the dwarf, who's one of our party members, and it puts him asleep for he's going to be asleep for 6 days. So we've lost one of our warriors. But we still managed to get out into the hallway and fight through the plant creatures. And I did manage to get command of the other troll and tell it to attack. Well, it barrels down the hallway to attack the hag, but I didn't. All it got was attack. So it attacks the first thing it comes to, which unfortunately is Ardath, Arlen Walker's fighter. And so I think we wound up having to slag that troll to prevent a disaster. But in the meantime, she cast a charm on Arlen's character, Ardath, and so now he's sees the hag as a friend. And Arlen did a good job of role playing this. He's like, "Hey, we could stop the fight. You guys are my friends and my allies, but I can't let you hurt my other friend. But look, we can all rule this castle together, because that's kind of been our thought, was we're going to take this castle, take it over." So the hag disappears around the corner, and I thought, well, what are we going to do here now? So we're kind of stuck, because this fighter character that all could kill any of the rest of us in one blow. So I decided, well, we've lost one fighter, but we don't want this hag to get away. We got a little damage in on her before she charmed Arlen's character. So I'm going to cast Paralyzation on him and see if it works. So I kind of walk up. I played it off as Burnfried coming up and like, "Hey, buddy," I'm just going to pat him on the shoulder and say, "Hey, no problem." Well, I go to pat him on the shoulder, but because it's technically a spell offense, I had to roll an attack roll, and I missed because he's got great armor. And Arlen did a good job of kind of playing, "Hey, I'm going to go with my friend. You guys stay here, calm down, don't follow me, or we'll have to come to blows." But when he turned to walk away, that provided me an opportunity attack to try again. So this time I rolled, and I did manage to touch him and paralyze him. So I've now unwittingly put our dwarf to sleep, and now purposely paralyzed our fighter. So it's just me and Jason's character, who's a wizard, now having to finish confronting this hag. So the troll has been following me. I recast command and tell it to attack the hag. So it goes down the hallway looking for something to attack. We come down the hallway. It's kind of stuck at a door, trying to get in a door. Like there's something in there he wants to attack. But the hag is farther down at the end of the hallway. And so I get the troll reoriented to attack her. And what does she do? She casts sleep again. I was like, okay, Jason, what are we going to do? I think let's try the spell duel. And we decided I would roll against her because he had a spell that could probably damage her significantly with like a scorching ray if I could stop her from putting him to sleep. So the highest you can roll on the spell duel chart is a 28. She rolled a 28. I rolled a little bit lower, but I burned a lot of my luck. I think I burned like 5 points of luck to match her. What happens when you match the numbers on a spell duel is you tear open a hole in reality, and the bigger the number that you've both rolled to match, the bigger the effect. So we rip open this hole in reality. It stops her spell, but then we both have to suffer corruption as a result of an arcane spell gone bad. Well, it's easy for her. She's the caster, so she's got the corruption associated with her sleep spell, and I think what it did was it made her bigger. It did some kind of physical mutation, which for a hag, who cares? There's not one for clerics, so Carl ruled that we would do it. I would just have to roll on her spell corruption table, and I wound up with translucent skin. I survived, but I have translucent skin now. So I figure I'm going to have to wrap myself up in some kind of linens to be able to pass around. And I thought he's probably going to look like, if you've seen the the preview images, or say for Moon Knight coming out, the Disney Plus series based on the Marvel hero Moon Knight, where he's Egyptian themed, so they've kind of designed his costume for the live action to kind of evoke a little bit of kind of the linen wraps you would have a mummy in. So I thought maybe that's what he would look like moving forward. But anyway, we don't fall asleep. We don't fall asleep. We both suffer the spell correct, and then Jason casts his scorching ray, and the troll's in the crossfire, so it kills the troll, which we were going to have to dispose of anyway once the spell wore off. Kills the hag, and that was probably one of the most epic spell battles I've ever been a part of. And I felt like I got to do a lot more things, because now I had two actions. I could cast a main spell, I could counter spell, but also like I used my spiritual weapon to animate my own sword. So some of those little plant creatures that were kind of in the way, I could use that to help fight them. And because I was able to do two things at once this time around, I felt like I was much more effective as a character, and got to do some really cool stuff. So we had a great time. This is also one of those times where both Jason and I, as the spellcasters, were generally rolling well on our spells. Usually either one of us is rolling hot and one of us is rolling poorly. So we were both kind of everything kind of worked out for the most part this time. So that's it for DCC. I know it's been a few weeks since that game. I may have forgotten some details. You can hear other recaps about it on Carl and Jason's shows. But yeah, that was a great time. Awesome stuff. Last week we were also supposed to play Pathfinder 2E with Carl and pretty much that same group that plays in Dungeon Crawl Classics. Arlen and Jason and some of those other same players. But we couldn't make it. The game didn't make. Neither Jason or Arlen were available, so we switched back into finishing out the Hyperborea role-playing game, Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, which we had started a few weeks ago as a backup kind of game when the last time the Pathfinder group didn't make. So this is me and the other player, the guy who plays Otto the Dwarf in DCC, Irks on the Discord server. But he's playing a character who is a cataphract, which is the sort of sword and sorcery version of Cavalier. I'm playing a barbarian. We had helped. We'd been tasked by the captain. We're kind of Marines, employed as Marines on a merchant ship, and the captain tasked us to go in. We had put into port in this town. He was supposed to pick up some ermine pelts from a local trapper. The guy wasn't there. He said, if you go, those are pretty valuable cargo, so if you go get them, I'll give you a kind of a commission. So we go. We find this guy has been attacked by undead, and we get to the cabin right as he's passed and reanimated as a zombie. We stop the zombie, save his family, agree to go gather all the pelts he had not gathered, and take him back to town and get the family their commission in addition to our commission, their pay, not their commission, that he would have gotten for the pelts. But we have to go around in the middle of the night and check all his traps. We do that, but then we also come up on a cave near the coast that we go down in, and we've been exploring through there and found some more zombies, and encountered some pirates. That we defeated the pirates who had been hiding out in that cave, and then thought, well, we got time. Let's look around and see if we can find anything else of value. So this time we stumbled on to a tunnel that leads to a temple to some ancient gods, and then inside a doorway in the temple, there's this sculpture. It's basically a topographical map of the world of Hyperborea. But we notice there's there's a little temple on the top of the center mountain, like kind of like it's supposed to be sort of, I think, evoke the idea of Olympus on top of the Mount Olympus, that there's the abode of the gods. It's a little figurine, but there's also on the place that represents the island we're on, there's some kind of arcane rune, and when I go to inspect it, I couldn't, Carl sent me a private message. I had to roll a saving throw, and I failed. And tells me that an alien entity has just taken possession of my body, and here's its alignment and its motivations and what it wants, and that there's my own body is in a pod somewhere close by, and so I'm able to kind of triangulate and work our way through the tunnels. So everybody notices something come over me, and then I even try to, we continue to explore the dungeon, and I'm trying to act weird. I say, I'm looking at people differently. I'm more stiff. I'm more methodical, and not kind of the kind of by the seat of my pants barbarian character I've been playing up to that point. And I try to telegraph it, and I PM Carl stuff that I think my character's doing, that he can say, hey, you guys notice that this character is kind of acting weird, and he's kind of creeping some of the NPCs out. One of the NPCs out that you've recruited to join you, Una, who is a cleric, but who's been indentured as a by the local washerwoman to wash clothes, and so anyway, as I'm trying to kind of work our way through the tunnels, we come across another kind of room with an idol. These ooze monsters come out and attack us once we kind of inspect these large urns around the room, and that was a pretty cool fight. It was based on a Clark Ashton Smith story. But yeah, so we had kind of a big fight there. Fortunately, everybody survived. But then from there, we go in and we find another room that turns out to be seems like to be the cockpit of some kind of ship that's been buried here, or something. It's all panels with buttons and switches and monitor screens, but anyway, there are these pods, and inside are these again. And this is a shout out to H.P. Lovecraft. This is the Great Race of Urd, that can project survive by projecting their consciousness into other beings. They used to do it just as a way to explore the galaxy as a scientists, but then when their race was wiped out, they had to that's the only way to perpetuate themselves. That's the Lovecraft story. I think this is just sort of an allusion to that. But there are these giant bugs in these pods, and it's like one of them is you. So I'm like, well, let's look at the switches, and I say, hey, everybody, come in. I got an idea. When these things come out, I think we don't want them to swarm them. Let's each get by one. Me and the other, the cataphract character. I'm still trying to remember all the characters' names. And Una, the NPC cleric. Let's all take one. And then if these things pop out, we've got kind of the drop on each of them, knowing full well that what's going to happen is as soon as they touch one of those pods, the being inside is going to try to take control of them. So I'm kind of bluffing and faking it. And it's like, okay, here we go. And yeah, both of them failed their saving throws and got taken over by alien entities. So that was the end of the session. We kind of discussed about what do we want to do, and I think what we're going to do is the quest of these things is they have to spend a year inhabiting the body of a human and go learn about whatever it is. It's really not clear what they want because it's really not your character. You're just supposed to kind of play along with them for the time that you're possessed. So Carl ruled that what's going to happen is next time we play, if we get a chance, is it's going to be a year later, and we're all just going to kind of come to and maybe have some vague understanding of what we've been doing for the last year, but maybe not any. Maybe it'll come to us in dreams. We'll all have some madness as a result of this happening to us. And we'll get to explore kind of the madness mechanic for the Hyperborea role-playing game. But I really like Hyperborea. That's where we left off. Kind of a great way to continue a campaign in a way that could have been effectively a TPK. In fact, I thought that was what was going to happen when they they both failed their saving throws. I said, this has got to be the best way to do a TPK ever. We're not going to die. We're just going to get possessed by alien minds. But now we figured out what we'll do is we'll pick up a year later where a year has passed and none of us know what we've been doing or what we've been up to, other than maybe getting some kind of little snippets of stuff. So I don't know when we'll play Hyperborea again, but that's going to be a lot of fun. And that's it for the episode. I want to thank Jason again for his calls. As always, be sure and check out the Nerds RPG Variety Cast, which is available here through Anchor and also on most of your podcatching apps. And thank you for listening. As always, you can drop me a message. And once again, I got a new email, arcane.alienist@gmail.com, and that is in the show description if you need to see that in print. So take care out there. I'll be back later. Thanks for listening to the Arcane Alienist podcast. The music you're hearing is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. The cover art I use for the episodes is by Dave Bone. Be sure and check out his website, ironseer.com, for a lot of other great gaming-related content. You can always leave me a voice message through the Anchor app or at the Anchor website, or you can email me at arcane.alienist@gmail.com. Once again, I appreciate you listening. Thanks so much.